Hello guys, and welcome to another episode on learning to code in C#. So what we're going to be looking at today are exceptions and exception handling. So what I've done is just created a simple project and called it exceptions. Okay, so I thought what would be best is just kind of dive in there to show you what exceptions are and how you would handle them, what you would use to handle these exceptions instead of talking and rambling for about an hour. Yeah, so let's dive in, write a program, and let's write one that ask the age of a user. Okay, so let's put console.writeLine, and then let's put how old are you? There we go. Right, so and then we can put int age is equal to int.parse console.readLine. And then let's put console.writeLine, so let's output the age, so you are years old, like so. Okay, so we all know how this will work. Someone will input their age using numbers, and then it will just be outputted. You are a certain number of years old, which is okay, which is it will work. But let's say what happens if a user would input their age using letters? Okay, so we can have a look at this. Let's press Control and F5. That one. Okay, and let's put 20 or something like that. Okay, so what we've got here is the program has blown up. It's unhappy. It's annoyed, and the universe will implode, which isn't very good. So now that's an exception. Exception is just a posh word for error. Okay, it's an error in your code. Okay, it just makes your program blow up for some strange reason. So now to handle these exceptions, C# has kindly provided two methods called the try and catch method, which we're going to be using today. So to create it, we're going to just put try and then catch, like so. Now, inside this try method is all the error-prone code that could all the code that could be error-prone. Okay. So what would actually happen is the code will, your program will execute, and it will go inside this try method, and it will try to get all of that code to execute. It will try to get all that code to work properly. If, however, there is an error in the code, then it will go down to this catch method, in which it will provide some form of output, like an invalid output or something like that. So let's actually get this working, and let's put console.writeLine, and let's put invalid or something like that. There we go. And Control and F5 again. Let's get rid of that one. And let's put 20. And it's written invalid. Okay, so our program has realized that there is an error, and it's now gone down to the catch method, which is great. That's kind of what we wanted, and that's a good step in the right direction. However, that's not really, it doesn't really give you much information. Okay, so let's say you've got 100 lines of code where quite a lot of it could be error prone. You could break it in a number of places. Well, saying invalid isn't very good. Okay, you want something that's a bit more understandable, a bit more readable. Okay, that's something that gives a bit more information. Well, we can do that. Up here in the catch, we can just we can create a bracket and then write exception E. So what we're doing is creating a variable called E, and E, we'll use E to use. That's a tongue twister. The E variable will have one of these methods in that's provided by the exception class. Okay, it's getting a little bit complicated, but essentially E is an instance of the exception class, and we are now going to use something inside the exception class that will help us that will give us a bit more information about our code. So I'll write e.message and press Ctrl and F5 again, and get rid of that one, use this one. So how old are you? And now we've got input string was not in a correct format. Okay, so that's getting some more information. That's really, really useful. Okay, we've now realized that there's something wrong with some form of conversion, okay, which is useful. So now what we can do is, yes, we know what the problem is, but we don't know where the problem is. Well, we can find that out again by using what is called the StackTrace, and press Ctrl and F5 again, close that. How old are you? Now this should look fairly familiar because it's the code that it's the output that we actually saw when our program blew up. Well, if we forget these 3 lines, okay, and just focus on this one, this actually tells you where the error occurred. Okay, so it occurred in this directory, it occurred in this program, and it occurred in this class, okay, the program class, which is there. So there is an error somewhere in this, and it apparently occurred on line 16, which is here. And we're going to actually validate this, make sure that it did indeed happen on line 16 by using a breakpoint. So let's press F5 again. Okay, so we've hit our breakpoint. Let's press F11. And how old are you? Let's put 20 again. And it's gone down to this catch method. So we definitely know that there is something going on here. There's something wrong on this line of code. So that's fine. We've now worked out where the problem was and what the problem was. So let's just put in invalid. So, and then let's put e.message and e.StackTrace. So let's press F5 again, see what happens. Let's get rid of that breakpoint. Let's get rid of that one as well. There we go, press F5. Okay, so how old are you? Let's put 20. Let's put 1. Okay, and let's output that. So we've got invalid, input string was not in the correct format, and then it's got this. So this is useful. You know, we've realised that there's something invalid. It's given us what the problem was and where the problem was. So that's useful, but it's a bit, you know, it's a bit horrible on the eyes. So let's put some formatting in there. Now, what we could do is just write const.writeLine invalid, then const.writeLine e.message, then const.writeLine e.StackTrace. But that's a bit tedious. So what we can use are what are known as escape characters. Okay, so there's quite a few escape characters that you can use, but in this one we'll be using the new line escape character. So how do we use that? Well, it's a backslash and then an N. Okay, so let's do another one around here, and then backslash N, and let's have a look to see what that looks like now. Hold on. Oh. So let's put 20 again. Oh, oops. Control F5. How old are you? 2 times easier. So it's created a new line after the invalid. It's created a new line after the input string, and this is where this is. Okay. So these backslash n, that's just creating a new line. Okay. It's an easy way of writing console.writeLine essentially. So yeah, like I said, there are loads of escape characters that you can have a look at. I won't look at all of them because there are quite a few and they all do lots and lots of different things, but the one that you're probably going to use most times is the backslash n escape character. Okay, so we've looked at the try method, we've looked at the catch method, we've also looked at e.message and e.StackTrace, and we've had a look at escape characters. So that's quite a lot. But one last thing that is quite important and can actually be quite difficult to understand for newcomers is the finally method. Okay, so let's just write it out. finally method, because we're incredibly unimaginative on this channel. So the finally method is a little bit difficult to understand because it will always execute. Irrespective of if there is an error in the code, the finally method will always execute. So this can be a little bit confusing. Why would you want something to execute when there's already an error in the code? Well, it comes down to things like file input and output, which we will get to later down the line. But very basically, the process for writing and reading a file would be to create a new file, firstly, then open file, then read or write to the file, so read or write, read to the file, and then close the file. Now, the close the file part is probably one of the most important parts of this process. The reason being is if you're writing something to the file, but then it crashes, okay, and it doesn't actually close, that means that there could be some memory that is being used up and isn't actually being, it's not actually doing something with that memory, and so it's kind of like it's almost processing something that isn't there, which could corrupt a file. It could essentially keep the file open and not actually close it, which means that you can't actually read the file or write to the file anymore. So there's a lot of things that could happen with file I/O, a lot of problematic things that could happen with file I/O. And yeah, so this is where the finally method comes in play. You would have the new file and open file and read write file inside the try method. So if something went wrong, let's say on the read write part of the code, it would go inside of this catch method and say, invalid for some reason. Then, however, you need to close the file. You absolutely need to, and this is where you would use finally. So inside this finally method, you would write close file or something like that to actually close it. Yeah, so even if there wasn't a problem, you would still have to put the close file inside this finally method because it needs to close, whether there's an error or not, needs to close. So that's why a finally method would be useful. And just to see it working, we will just run it. That one. So how old are you? Let's put a valid answer. About 20 years old, and finally method. So it's gone inside this finally method. And now let's create an error. So how old are you? 20. Oh, I can see it. Let's put 2 instead. Okay, so we've got invalid, input string was not in the correct format, then we've got where the problem occurred, and then we've got finally method here. So the finally method will always execute, irrespective of if there is an error in the code. Okay, so that's basically what you'll need to know for exception handling and exceptions and things like that. So that's really useful. There, like I said, there are quite a few things that you can use here, like help link, H result, and or exception, but all do different things. And I would urge you to have a look at them and see what they all do, and try to understand them as best you can. Okay, because they're all useful for varying different things. So yeah, here we've looked at exception handling, the try-catch finally methods. We've looked at exceptions and using methods inside the exception class. We've looked at also escape sequences. So that's quite a lot in one video. However, what I'm going to do is just close this program now and open up the cinema program that we wrote in the first or second video, whichever it was. Okay, so this is it. Now I said there are quite a few errors that you can that you can try to fix. And if you fix them, then fantastic, well done. If not, however, that's absolutely no problem. We will go through it together and see, if we can try to fix a few of these errors. So let's put Rob again, and let's please enter your age. Okay, so this is a prime one. We can put 2. It comes up with an error, and it says input string was not in the correct format. So Visual Studio has actually done this for us, which is quite nice of it, but it still broke our program. So what we can do is, like in the previous example, we can put in the try method, like so. And down here, we can just put in it around there-ish. I think it's there, isn't it? Yeah. So then we can put catch, and let's put exception. We're creating an instance of the exception class, which is E in this case. So then we can put the e.message, StackTrace, things like that. Instances are a little bit, they're not so much difficult, they're more tricky to understand, I think. But that's absolutely no problem. We'll get to instances and classes and objects and things like that a little bit later. So don't worry if this is a little bit, if like what I'm saying is a little bit complicated. It will make sense, I promise you. So let's write invalid, like so, and let's put an escape character, put a new line, escape character. And let's put e.message, and let's put a new escape character, a new line, and then e.StackTrace, like so. Okay, so that's now, so any error in our code will now go down to here, which is great. So now if we run our program again, don't know if there we go. So please enter your name, no problem. 2. Okay, we've got invalid, input string was not in the correct format, and then we've got the problem which occurred on line 31. So where's line 31? It's here, which is absolutely fine. That's where we expected it to occur. So let's keep going with this. Let's try to see if there are any more problems that can crop up. So let's put age is 11. Let's put Spider-Man this time. Are you with an adult? Let's put yes. Here we go. This is an interesting one. So we put yes, but the program is saying that we're too young. So what's going on? Well, let's have a look. So const.writeLine, are you with an adult? Yes, no is equal to const.readLine, so that's fine. If yes, no is equal, here's the problem. If yes, no, so whatever is inside this yes, no variable, it needs to equal this, the yes. Okay, now if we have a look, we put in a uppercase yes, and here it's looking for a lowercase yes. Okay, so it's absolutely fine. That's no problem. What we can do is actually convert any input the user puts in to a lowercase input. Okay, and we can do that by first closing the program, and then put dot to lower. Okay, so what this will do is actually convert the input that the user gives us into lowercase. Okay, so if we try that again, so F5, let's put actually is there a console readline? Yes, there is, so we don't need to put a breakpoint. So please enter your, actually what I will do just to show how it's working is there. That's right. Yes, it is. No, it's not. There. Okay, that's a bit better. Let's put Rob. And let's please enter your age. So let's put 11. And let's put 1 again. So, okay, we've hit this point. So, are you with an adult? Okay, so let's put yes, goes into there, and as you can see here, okay, so the input was yes. Our program then converted the input to lowercase and is now storing that value into yes, no. Okay, so this will now work, and you've chosen Spider-Man. Enjoy. Let's have a look at the output. Perfect, it's worked. Great. It's exactly what we wanted. So I can think of another problem that might occur. So let's have another look. Rob, please change your age to 11. Spider-Man Homecoming again. And 11. I'm with an adult, so let's put yes this time. But let's put loads and loads of spaces. What do you think will happen? Okay, so try to actually figure out what will happen, you think. If you figured it out, well done. If you haven't, however, this is what will happen. So it goes inside the if statement, press F11, and it says you are too young. Okay, and it outputs you are too young. So what's going on here? Well, like I said before, this is looking for that exact output. Okay, that exact output. So, you know, it doesn't matter if there are loads and loads and loads of spaces, or if it's uppercase, it's lowercase, it has to be that. And if it isn't, it will always fail. Okay, it will always be false, that statement. So what we can do is now add to our conversion the trim command, which will actually trim all white space from the input, all spaces from your input. So let's have a look at that again. Let's close the program and start again. Let's close that one. Okay, so please enter your name. Rob, age is 11. Please enter film 1. So F11. Are you with an adult? Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, so let's have a look here. So this is what was input, the yes with loads of spaces. Now it's already in a lowercase format, so it doesn't need to convert it at all, so it leaves it as it is. The trim then deletes all of the white space from the input and then is stored inside the yes/no variable as yes. So this should output, I think I pressed the wrong button, but it shouldn't matter. Let's go back to the, there we go, you have chosen Spider-Man, enjoy. Which is fantastic, it means it's worked. Okay then, so let's time that up a bit. Okay, so that program is now working. It's catching any exceptions that it finds. It's also doing a little bit of validation here with the toLower and the trim commands. So yeah, that's I think a really good place to stop. You know, have a play around with it again, see if you can make it a little bit better. Have a look at escape sequences, see, you know, if you can figure them out, see what they do. Some of them are actually quite interesting. And also, if you get time, have a look at the different commands you can use in the exception class. So what's source or inner exception or H result or help link, things like that. So have a look at them, see, you know, what they do, try to understand them. And in the next episode, we'll be looking at loops, which should be quite fun and interesting. So hope that was interesting, hope that was helpful in some way. And yeah, see you in the next video. Have a great day.